the Gentlementor.
Does it seem to you? Here's my impression. I woke up this morning and I'm like, oh, it's Wednesday.
I didn't know you did impressions.
Come on, man.
Come on, man.
So I woke up this morning and I'm like, it's Wednesday. It's been a week since we did the election thing. It seems like it's been a freaking month to me.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, you're
That's
right.
it's like the clock just went. Been like a time warp.
It's like a slow motion. Yeah, it's like a poor episode of Star Trek in the time continuum. It's just like, what is happening?
I saw a the thumbnail for a video. I was looking at videos, and there was a thumbnail went by, and it said "The Controlled Demolition of America."
Oh, wow!
And I'm like,
there's just so much. You almost don't even have to watch the video for that.
No,
that in itself is like, oh, holy cow!
Right there, yeah. And all the everything that's going on. Kind of like a known quantity. That's what we were talking the other day. I said, as far as I'm concerned, I'm the only person that called the election. Because I said we're not going to know, and nobody's going to believe the results. It doesn't matter which side you're on. Whichever side wins, you're going to think they cheated.
Yep.
Ta-da!
Yep. So what is? So I'm sitting in my chair back here, and I'm going. I'm just a family man, with a full-time job. I got a podcast with you. I got a garden. I mow the lawn every week.
Woodworking? You do the woodworking?
School. I do some woodworking. What do we do? What do we do when we look at this? Just as I'm a common Joe. What do I do?
What do we do? I think the first thing you got to do is the perspective thing we were talking about. You got to kind of push back. And you got to go before I decide that I need to do anything about anything. I hope it's time to push back for a second, take a deep breath and shoot for some kind of clarity. It's just really hard with the constant barrage of information. I think Crowder yesterday said it's like trying to drink from a fire hose, which is not a new thought, but it's one I hadn't heard in a while. And it just seemed like that is exactly what it's like.
Right. It is.
So you got to turn the hose off.
But
and try not to drink down the truck.
Who's got that kind of power to turn the hose off?
Well, you turn your TV off, turn your phone off, stop your social media, stop taking in stuff. And I'm not talking about quitting. I'm not even talking about, I got to take a month off.
Right.
A few minutes. Take a day. You can afford to miss it for a day. If anything really important happens, somebody will let you know. You can tell a friend, hey, I'm going to take a day off social media. If anything happens in the news... the deal I used to make with my brother on Christmas Eve. If you wake up first, you're getting me up. And if I wake up first, I'll wake you up. So
that's pretty good.
Everybo's covered.
So I think that's
you got to take a breath.
I think that's a very healthy step. And I think I think that's what we should do on a normal basis.
And I didn't mean to go, I didn't mean
to
be podcasty there. That's my legit answer.
No, and I agree, but I think a lot of times we don't think about it, and especially in this time period, this starting last month, and then into this month, and all the way up until January 20th, we're just going to be like, I don't want to miss a minute because I want to see what's going on.
Yeah, because what's going to happen, and
we don't want to be
bound
left
to get
out.
Spicy.
but perhaps it would be best for us to take a rest day, like a lot of athletes do in athletic training. Is, hey, let's take a rest day. Let this sink in. Let our mind resurface. Let our mind kind of clear out and go, okay, let me think about this clearly so I can take this in with a little bit more wisdom and concise thinking. That's good. That's good advice. That's one thing. That's one thing we can do.
When your peace of mind is gone, there's no way to think clearly about things. You can't get your perspective. You can't get like rational thoughts because that fear impulse is pushing you so hard. Yeah. Even if you feel like I've really thought this out, and here's why. Wait. You don't have to make a decision. Take some time and then decide, what do you think about it? Right. What's going on?
A lot of it's like a really long sports game. I mean, nobody wants to miss a minute. Nobody wants to miss a second of the action. This is the championship game right now.
That's why little kids don't want to go to bed at night, because they're afraid to miss something.
They're afraid to miss anything. If I'm asleep, I'll miss something.
And what happens to them? They get cranky and irritable and hard to deal with.
That's true. Good point.
And it is stealing people's sleep. It's been a tense time for a long time, and this is not helping to alleviate. This is like it's coming to a head.
Yeah.
And it's like, do you want an election? Is your desire to have an election that everyone, or you're never going to have it? Is your desire to have an election that most rational people will accept the results of? Because I'm not that invested. I don't really care at the end of the day. As I was talking to Kelly about it, I'm like, I don't really care who wins that much, because in my honest assessment of my 50 years here, the person inhabiting that office has had very little actual impact on my personal day-to-day life inside my house.
Right. Agree.
It just don't matter.
Agreed.
Now, if you want a result that the most people will accept, you're going to have to allow for some scrutiny. You can't just say, as Whoopi Goldberg did the other day, suck it up like we had to. I'm so interested in this idea that people who support Biden have, that they have somehow been gracious losers for the last 4 years. Mitch McConnell, the quote from him, I'm not going to be lectured by people who still haven't accepted the results of the last election that I have to accept the results of this election.
Right.
If you want people to accept it, there has to be transparency. There has to be scrutiny. And when people hide things or try to hide things, it's always going to raise suspicions.
Man, it's crazy. All right. So okay. So let's go back. I need something practical.
Something practical.
So we talked about, okay, so what can we do? I'm going to go back to what can we do as we're average people in America.
I think you got
law-abiding citizens.
Yeah,
we take some time off. Okay. We take some time, take a day, take 24 hours, take 48 hours.
Minimum 24.
24 minimum. Nothing is going to happen. Shut off your phone, shut off your news, shut off your TV, quit looking in the papers. And if anything terrible is going to happen, I'm sure that someone will let you know. Make a pact.
Get your accountability partner and say,
get your accountability partner, your wife, coworker, somebody that's going to be like, hey, I want to let you know something happened.
Yeah.
I don't think anything is going to happen. Take 24 hours, 8 of it, you're going to be asleep anyway.
It's a propaganda war right now. So all it is people making accusations. Till something goes to court,
clear your mind.
They don't know nothing.
Do whatever it is you do. Pray, meditate, get some sleep, whatever it is you do. Okay, that's a good practical step. What else? What else do we do? And when we come back and we see the stuff and we're like, okay, what can I do?
The purpose of the pause is to, like I say, get perspective, reevaluate. And I think what we always say here is ask yourself hard questions.
Yeah.
Ask yourself, sit down with a piece of paper and a pen. Do it. Be Mark Walker for a minute.
Okay.
And be thoughtful and write things down rather than being done and just yelling things. Ah!
Yeah. There's a place for both. There's a place for both.
There is, right here on this podcast.
Right. This here. I'll write it down. You yell it. I'll write it.
And I think you got to say that how much can I say that any president during my lifetime being in office affected my life directly? Mm-hmm. Not like he came down and saw me or sent me a letter, but like some policy he did had a direct effect. I'm not saying it never does, but I'm saying I think it's a lot less than we want to admit. And we want to pretend that guy sitting in that office has some kind of ability to control our lives and our emotions.
Okay, so if I were to make a list, I like what you say, because I was having this.
I'm sorry, I keep sidetracking on these other things.
No, because this is all very relevant.
I think that's the first thing you got to ask yourself is, does that?
You're absolutely right. And I had this conversation with a coworker of mine the other day. I was like, I'm all for the office of president, but I think when it comes down to it, my very daily existence does not depend on the decisions that they make. And I think that is a good idea, Doug. I think it's a good idea. Let's take some pencil and paper and go, okay, what decisions does the orange man make that really that changed my life? Okay, let's not go back to the orange man. Let's go back to the man before him. Let's go back to the president in the office before him. Okay, I'll just go back for that one. Okay, we've got the Healthcare Act. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm writing it down. I'm making a list. Healthcare Act.
You do that. You're the list guy, man. That's your thing.
Healthcare Act. I don't know the numbers, but I'm going to say that has really affected a lot of people in America. Okay.
For sure.
And it still affects a lot of people in America.
But yeah. Well,
okay?
we're still fighting over it. It still
We're
has
still
been,
fighting it. And we always are because it's helpful to a lot of people. I've heard a lot of stories of people like, hey, I couldn't have gotten healthcare. I couldn't afford healthcare. Now I can. We got people that are like, hey, I don't need healthcare. Now I'm getting, of course, they've taken the penalty away, the tax penalty away for healthcare. And but before that, they were getting the penalty and so forth, whatever. So there's things on both sides. That's common with anything. I don't care what happens.
The real problem is that we never ask the real question. We get into all these sidetrack questions.
Yeah.
The first question we have to ask ourselves, we'll use your example of healthcare just so we don't have to go talking in theoretics. We'll use that.
Okay.
Is healthcare, here's the fundamental question, is healthcare a right? That's where this is where this argument always boils down to. Do you believe that I as and this gets constitutional. You have to understand.
Is voting a right?
The rights enumerated in our founding documents are rights allegedly given to us by God. They belong to us inherently. No person, no government gives them to us. The purpose of the government is to take that list of rights that we've enumerated through the Declaration and the Constitution and protect those rights for U.S. citizens. Doesn't mean people who aren't citizens don't have those rights. It just means that this U.S. government is only responsible for defending those rights for U.S. citizens. Well, there's a lot of information that tells us a lot about, is healthcare a right?
Is it a right?
It's not.
It is.
Healthcare is not a right.
I disagree. It's a right.
In what sense?
In what that I have the right to choose what I put in my mouth.
Sure.
I have the right to
choose.
Your
healthcare is your right.
What I ingest. That's my right. Healthcare is a right. If I don't want to drink this, I don't have to drink this if I don't want to. If I don't want to smoke it, I don't have to smoke it if I want to.
But that is your right as an individual.
It is not the government's right.
It is not the government's right. It is not the government's responsibility.
Sure. You're absolutely right. And I agree.
Okay,
I agree.
So how do we make this
right?
thing?
That is way too right-winged.
It is what it is. I can only work with facts. And I tell my left-leaning friends, look, I don't have a problem with doing however you want to do it. We talked about immigration one night. And I said, if you want open borders, I'm fine with that.
Sure.
But let's make it legal.
Right.
Let's change the law to say that. And let's get rid of all the laws we're not using. Because all that does is inspire bureaucracy and corruption.
And I think the people that come into this country want to be legal. I think I mentioned that the other night. That's the thing. They want to go through, what is the process? Please tell me, what is the process that I can go through? I want citizenship. I want to be legal because I want to be here because it benefits my family that I've left back in wherever, because I can send them money. I can help them. So tell me what I need to do. Anyway, you're absolutely right, Doug, and I agree. But healthcare is something that is huge right now, and it's whether it is a governmental right or not, it is affecting a lot of people. So let me throw one other thing on the list. Employment. Okay. This has probably been one of the Orange Man's biggest things that he has done. We have decreased unemployment up until COVID. Unemployment has decreased incredibly amount. We've made a record number of people working.
Apparently, the new report says we're back under 7%.
That's great. Okay. I mean, even despite the pandemic and the closures around America and the current closures still in America, people are still working. People can still find jobs. I have a niece who moved here from another state, and she has been here for, I don't know, 2 months and had 2 or 3 different jobs. And I'm just like, that's great. She's 20 years old and she's been able to pick and choose. And hey, I'm not unemployed because she can't find a job. She just can't, whatever. She can't find the right job. I'm fine with that. At least she's employed.
Like me.
Anyway, the thing is, okay, those are some things that affect us. But if you're making that list, and let's go back to that list of things that are really affecting us on a day-to-day life.
Things that the guy in the Oval Office does.
Things that the guy in the Oval Office that have really affected us.
And even Obamacare says Obamacare, but it was the Congress that passed it. See, the president doesn't really, outside executive orders, doesn't even have the ability to do very much at all.
Right. Right.
If you want to get mad about what's going and what's not going, look at Congress. Nobody ever looks
Right.
at Congress. I mean,
Yeah.
I am glad to say that their approval rating is lower than it's ever been. And I think that's completely appropriate because they're do-nothings.
Yeah.
What they do is politicize things. And either one of these, we could look at immigration or we could look at medical or healthcare, either one. And what's happened is you've got the old cancer situation where there's allegedly 5 cures for cancer, but we can't have them because there's more money in treating cancer than curing it.
Right. It destroys our healthcare industry.
There's more power in maintaining a broken system than there is in fixing it.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's more money in it, there's more corruption in it, there's more opportunities to rob, steal. And so you got this capitalist system that we live in, and somebody wants, okay, we want to have socialized healthcare for everybody. So we're going to have to plug a socialist component into a capitalist machine, which to me sounds like putting diesel fuel into a regular car. Like something's not going to work the way it's supposed to.
Right. And it works for a while. It works for a while. And then something goes wrong. We were texting the other day about priorities, and you brought that up for a second.
I guess we did kind of talk about it, and then I kept rabbit trailing myself.
And that's whatever. Yeah, that's fine. We talked about priorities because you were kind of politically exhausted, which I think we all kind of are.
Yeah.
With the whole political realm. But I kind of felt like I was kind of in our conversation earlier. I kind of felt like I was kind of bringing that into okay, what is right now, what can be some priorities that we do as just normal everyday Americans?
You were trying really hard. I just kept I kept
no, and that's fine. And that's
the thing I said I didn't want to talk to. I kept running right back.
But I mean, why avoid what's really happening?
Like a preacher trying to get back into church during COVID. I kept going back to it.
We can't go. Let's go back to the building. Is this why you should be in church? But we can't really avoid what's really happening.
Right.
I mean, this is top of mind for everyone right now. And we can't really avoid, and that's why I was talking about what are some things that we can just do. We're just people sitting here in our houses, sitting here and loving our families and doing what we do every day. What can we do? And I think we brought out a couple of things that we can do that just make, okay, we can clear our head, for crying out loud. We can do that.
We clear our head.
That's some practical priorities.
We prioritize how important is this to us based on information about our personal experience with other administrations. Does this really affect me, and to what extent? And we brought out there are from time to time things the president does that will affect us personally, but those generally, unless they go through an executive order, will go through Congress. None of that matters now. What matters is to say, okay, now we've looked at that, and you can look at that with a clear head and in perspective where you say, and that looking at what that president or what these presidents have affected allows you to decide how invested you are in that. The next step, I think, is to set that all aside and go, what in life does affect my life?
Right.
That's not political. People in my house, the job that I work at, the school that I go to, and to look at those things again, always to look at them in an honest light. And you can look at those things. Are they a positive in my life or are they a negative in my life? And if they're a positive in your life, then try to find ways to accentuate and feed those things so that they grow and thrive and fill more of your life than the negative things.
Feed the positive, starve the negative.
Yeah. So you've got, like you said, the presidential thing, something we can't really avoid. You have to deal with that. And I think the best way to deal with it is try to prioritize it and decide how invested you are.
Right.
Do you feel like this is really going to impede your freedom and you need to take part in going out on, rallying and waving your flag? Great. If that's what but think it through first.
Sure.
Is it really worth it? What's it going to cost?
What's the cost?
Count the
What's
cost.
The price you're
Count
have to
the cost.
Build the tower, count the cost.
Yeah, because there's so much stuff in I didn't mean to be dismissive or condescending about liberals driving themselves crazy with fear of Trump, which they were doing before the last election, have done all through the preceding 4 years.
Sure.
But you're not just driving yourself crazy. You're driving the people around you crazy, and you're probably driving them away to some extent.
Absolutely.
But what you're also doing is filling all your time with negativity and worry and bad things that you think are bad and are coming to do bad things to you. That's going to have repercussions. You need to set that stuff aside and say, what are some positive things that I can invest my time into, being my family, my friends, my church, my hobbies, something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Distract yourself, man.
Man, I think that's huge. And I'm going to quote a friend of mine, Zach Hoskins, who does incredible work, and his whole platform is radiate positivity. And it may seem cheesy, but his whole idea, you should check him out. Team Radiate Positivity. Check him out. He's a great guy.
I've watched his videos.
Anyway, and he talks about that, and really what he does, which just amazes me and astounds me, is he curates a lot of good information. But talking about positivity, I was thinking about 3 P words that had been in our text message for the past week, and here's another one, and now there's 4 thanks to Zach. But we talked about priorities, and then the word perspective came up, and then the word politics came up, and now the word positivity is coming up. So here's 4 words. Let's take just a second, Doug, and let's put them into rank order.
I don't think a second's going to be enough time. I mean, slightly longer.
Well, I can assure you that we can probably put politics as number 4. Okay.
Absolutely.
Would you? Okay. We can agree with that. So if we can eradicate that one, we've got politics down to number 4. We've got perspective, positivity, and priorities. How can we rank those? First of all,
you want me to rank them?
No, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Perspective is a choice. It's not always, I don't know. Perspective is a thing. One of those things we don't realize sometimes, that we have a perspective, or that sometimes we realize we have a wrong perspective, or sometimes we realize that we can change our perspective. I think a lot of times as human beings and as intellectual beings, we don't realize, wait a minute, we've got a lot of effect over perspective, and perspective really changes a lot of things. Go ahead, say it. I know you've got something going on in there. Go for it. I can see it.
Oh no, it's something just a thing I've said so much that it makes people want to slap me. Perspective's everything.
Perspective is everything. No, I don't want to slap you for that.
I've said that for years. Perspective is everything.
It is.
And you are the person that made me aware of that.
So this is one of my
you always like to quote me. I just wanted to throw one back at you.
Here's one of my favorite books. It was sitting on my desk. It's called A Whack in the Side of the Head. Roger von Oech. He's one of my favorite authors. He talks about thinking creatively. And he says in here, one of the most dangerous things you can ever have is an idea when it's the only one you have. That's the most dangerous thing. And this doesn't really have anything to do with creative thinking, but my idea is, if I interpolate that, the most dangerous thing is a perspective when it's the only perspective you have.
True. That
is very dangerous. And I think as human beings, we need to consider other perspectives. We need to think about things from other perspectives, because, I mean, that's just being emotionally intelligent, really. When we think about our wake, when we think about what other people are thinking, we think about how they think about things. And, and then it's one of those things where an emotional intelligent person like you and I go, crap, I didn't realize what I said actually hurt you, because you've actually been through this, because I don't have that perspective. I've never been molested as a child, so I don't have that perspective, but I mentioned something that offended you at that because you have been. I have not. So the most dangerous thing that you can ever have is a perspective when it's the only one you have.
Mm. Yeah.
Go.
Word up. Word up.
Go.
Right on.
I don't know what else to say.
10,000 points to that man.
Yes.
No, that's exactly. When I say perspective is everything, I mean perspective is everything.
I agree.
I mean, if you don't have that, you are so screwed. You don't need to go down the list.
Yeah.
There's nothing else you need if you don't have perspective. And it's not about having the right perspective or the wrong perspective. It's just what you were talking about. It's being able to not only see from your point of view, but to at least, and it's an imperfect art, but to at least consider the perspective of others.
Okay. Here's what I got. This is in my head right now. I want to talk about this.
Say it.
Okay. You ready? I've seen these things on Instagram where these guys take amazing photos with it's the dynamics of the photos that they take, whether it's someone, doing their hands like, something crazy, and then there's like snow or leaves in between their hands and stuff like that. And then the next photo, when you swipe, is a third party person taking a photo of those guys taking that photo. And it's like, now you can see how they created that amazing art. And I'm serious. It's amazing art. It's an art form. It's creativity beyond wildest dreams that I don't have. And I see the stuff they do. And I realize, I look at that photo and I go, there's no way that can be real. It's not. But the perspective from the third person point of view, and you realize that's what they did to create that kind of perspective. They used, the guy, a fourth of the guys like doing this to like styrofoam to create snow and stuff like that. And then they're taking a picture through I don't know. Anyway, that's the kind of thing that makes you, not only does it make me realize, okay, that's not real, but wow, how incredibly creative that was to create that, to make people go, that is so beautiful. Anyway, I don't, that just what maybe as you were talking, I was just thinking about that. I'm getting all excited. I don't know why, but I'm getting all excited about, that's a perspective that even though, I don't know, it shows you, it kind of, disassembles the realism of it. It's not really real. And I know it's not, but at least I've got that perspective, and I have a whole new perspective how creative they are at creating something like that. So I think that's incredible. And I don't know how we as human beings can interpolate that as, okay, let's take a minute and step back and realize, whether it's conservative or liberalism or, you're pro-life, you're pro-choice, you're anti-gay, you're pro,
NFL,
whatever, NFL pro. You're pro kneeling, you're pro standing during the whatever. I don't know. Is take a moment to step back and go, what can we do to take a moment and step back and realize, wait a minute, there's another perspective besides just mine.
Right. It's like I said, it's not even something that's on most people's radar in my experience to consider. That's when I look at other human beings and they do ridiculous things. The first thing that I want to ask them is, did you think about how that person was going to feel about that? When we go through the media, the news media, and how they use what we would call manipulation. They're manipulating perspective. When we talk about the current election system, well, have you considered how the other side is going? I know you're really happy and excited and celebrating right now, but have you thought about how those people feel? You can always do that, but we rarely choose to. It's not, I don't think it's a failing as human. I think it's just part of that selfish thing that we always struggle with. My perspective is so busy being on me. It's really kind of odd for me to shift it onto someone else and think, oh, can I see this from their point of view? Or, how many times have we heard the various illustrations that are used in sermons about perspective? And, oh, if you were closer to God, you would realize your problems aren't that big, but it's because you're paying more attention to your problems than you are to God. And your problem starts to look like it's bigger because it's closer to you. And it's all true. It's all true.
And here's something, and I don't not know what this is worth. Andy Stanley said this when I heard him speaking one time. He said, everybody's behavior makes sense to them. If someone's behavior does not make sense, it's because we don't know something. And that's the kind of thing that just made me go, well, there's so many layers to that. I just need to back up and go, wait a minute. When someone does something ridiculously stupid, it's like, wait a minute, they did something because they believe something that I don't know. They have a perspective that I don't have. And whatever they did makes sense to them. I burnt down that building because this makes sense to me, whatever. And there's something I don't know. And again, whatever that is may not necessarily be right or wrong, but
the thing is so many times we look at someone doing something, well, it just doesn't make any sense.
Right.
It's like, well, why is that? Is it because it doesn't make sense, or because you don't know all the facts?
Right.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, maybe that is it. Yeah.
But nobody wants to admit they don't know. They don't know all the facts. I'm not going to say, you know what? I really don't.
Oh, I am not going to. Like I said, perspective to me is the most invaluable thing in the world, and it doesn't just apply to this; it applies to everything.
It does.
You, and I can't even quote you a quote. It was a conversation we had many years ago. One of the earliest conversations I remember having with you.
Maybe in the office.
Maybe at Taco Bell. And it was, and I'm like, that's what it is. That's the problem. I'm not seeing things right because I'm so caught up in my little momentary trauma. And I'm so invested in that. I can't pull that bag off my head long enough to look around and see if a car's coming. So I'm just walking down the middle of the street, and it's all a trick of perspective. It's because I lost sight of what I was supposed to keep. It's always the theme when things go wrong in Doug's life is that, oh, you weren't paying attention to what you were supposed to be paying attention to. You got sidetracked. You lost your perspective. It wasn't a bad perspective. It's just not this perspective you're supposed to have. You're supposed to look at things over here like this, like you ain't from here. Like you don't live here.
Yeah.
You're just passing through. And that's not just a cool line in a song. That's the truth. When God says, and David says to God in the Psalms, I am an alien here with you.
Mm-hmm.
And they translate it as foreigner. I would go back and go to the version that says alien, because I am an alien here. This world is not my home. And that's been underlined and said over and over. Why can't I get that through my head? If I could get a hold of that piece of truth and live by it, it would change my life. But it slips away from me. I have moments where I have a hold of it. And it's like mercury and it's gone. You find that you're just sitting there wringing your hands and I'm in some depression mode or something seems horribly wrong, or I'm going on Instagram and making emotional posts and worrying people. And it's like, why are you doing that? It's like, because you've lost your perspective. You're not looking at the right thing anymore. You're looking at Instagram. You're looking at the situation that happened. You're looking at XYZ. You're looking the wrong way.
So
look
perspective.
Look over here.
So perspective is priority.
Well, that's what I was saying when we were talking about it. Texas, like I need perspective before I can see what the priorities are.
Okay.
My perspective has to be right before I can get the priorities right.
But wouldn't a priority be to gain perspective?
Well, like I said, to me, it's the only priority. It's the number one
perspective.
Thing. It's
perspective is the number one priority.
I don't need a list for it. I know if things are wrong, that's the first place to look. That's 98% of the time going to be the answer.
Right.
Where are you looking that you're not supposed to be looking? I remember when I got...
Where are you not looking that you should be looking?
Yeah. Last year when the whole Discovery thing blew up and I was at home feeling morose and couldn't get anything going, and the lady across the street was out with her pushing her trash and had like 6 or 8 trash cans. I'm just like, don't you need some help? And I went over and she kind of had it done, but she was hurting. And so I'm like, my back hurts. And we'd visit for a while. I'm like, can I pray for you? And prayed for her. And I walked away and I felt like I could have floated across the street. And I'm like, why does this make me feel so good? Because that's what you're supposed to be doing, dumbass.
It's just a simple act.
You're supposed to be looking out for other people. When you hurt and when you get hurt, it's because you're too busy looking at you.
Oh my gosh, man.
Man,
if we could only get that.
That's what I'm saying, man. If I can get it. If I could learn to hang on to it.
So, and
that's the new goal.
That's a problem, is that our only perspective is ourselves. We only see our own selves constantly in the view screen.
It's no different.
Pop up the periscope and look, there's me.
It's no different than the election thing. We are losing track of important things because we are so focused on it. We are inundated with it. We're trying to drink from the fire hose.
And here comes the politics.
Get rid of it. We don't need it. Walk away from that. Is it important? It's a part of your life. You're never going to escape it entirely, but nothing is more important than perspective.
Nothing is more important.
Because you will jack yourself up without it, man.
You will. And nothing is more dangerous than a perspective when it's the only perspective you have. I would add that. I would add that
I would take your thought one further, and I would say that one perspective isn't really perspective at all.
That's true.
They call that myopia.
That's a new word. I just learned a new word today. Myopia.
To be myopic is to have only one view. To only be able to look at something one way.
I always think about, did you take art in high school or in school? You took art class, you remember doing the perspective drawings where you did the ruler. So you had the point in the middle of the page, on the vanishing point, whatever, the vanishing point, and everything drew to that point. So there was a perspective drawing.
Loved them.
Yes, they were very fun.
That was one of the first things in art that I ever felt I mastered. I didn't master it. I mastered it at my grade school level, but once I learned to do it and the mechanism, I loved doing it because it felt empowering.
Well, because it's only a concept you have to grasp.
Right.
It's not there are things in art And if we just stick on the art theme, there are themes in art that takes a little bit of skill. You know, I mean, you watch Bob Ross. I love watching Bob Ross. You know, he makes it look so easy, but there takes a little bit of skill in making a flower and making reflection off of water.
Sure.
But perspective is so easy to master when you realize just the concept that there's a vanishing point, and all those lines, no matter where you start them, all go to that one point, and all the other lines are just they're perpendicular. Period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter where they are.
It's weird because it's something we see every day, and our brain knows it's there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's not until someone explains the concept to us that it kind of clicks in, and it's like,
right. Once you
everything does look smaller when it's further away, and the further away it gets, the smaller it gets. Bob Ross did one a couple of years ago, and it was about how colors are darker further away, and they get lighter as they get closer. And it was something, like I said, I've seen in painting, pictures, nature, my entire life. But the concept didn't have like a definition. It didn't have a description.
Right.
Yeah. And it's like it clicks in. And it's like, oh. So, yeah. Perspective.
Perspective. Cheers. Perspective.
Did I sidetrack you on the art thing?
Positivity. No, you didn't sidetrack me. I don't know where else to go.
I
was just looking at our text message stream, and there's 3 words, and we were talking about Zach, and I threw in the other P word. And so there's just a bunch of P words we're throwing around right now, and they all go together.
Oh, it's
got are there any other P words you want to put in? Are there any other P words you want to put in?
There's happy possibilities there.
Possibilities.
Happy little trees. Happy little trees.
Possibilities. Let's put some possibilities.
I think, to me, it's definitely perspective first, and perspective is where you find your other P word.
Passion.
No. Get that out
Purpose.
of here. Get that out of here. Priorities. Oh, you might find purpose there too if you have the right purpose.
Popularity.
I find my purpose in my perspective, because it's always that thing of realizing that it's not, the perspective's wrong if it's focused on me, and that defines what my purpose is.
Right. It goes back to the prayer you had with your neighbor, that once you put that perspective off of you, then you found some purpose.
This is peculiar.
This is peculiar. Yeah.